Hey guys, we're going to be going back to Treshen for an updated high score run. The run I posted the other day that used like Bulwark and did a turn 4 clear, it was the rank 1 clear for a while. People started to use it, and then a few people passed me up, and which is fine. You know, I make jokes about people using my teams to get higher than me. That is literally why I post the videos, so do not feel guilty, especially even if I joke around. I'm fine with it. I'm posting the videos so you guys can use the videos to score high. Even if it means scoring higher than me, it's totally fine. That's why I post the videos. Anyway, people started to use my old team and pass me up, so I went back to the drawing board and I updated my clear, and I am once again back at the legitimate rank 1. There's actually 11 cheaters ahead of me. We're going to real quick peek and shame at these cheaters. Shame on all of you. Like, some of these cheaters are just blatantly obvious. Other ones, like the guy directly ahead of me, like I promise you right now, no one's using things like Adele, Furion, and Shadow on a rank 1 team, on a high score team. It's not happening. They're fake. Here's my friends list. These are all legitimate players. But anyway, here is the updated team we're going to be using. We're going to turn 6 now. I figured out ways to survive the turns the turns 3 and 4 that were causing problems, which then caused a problem with morale. I solved that problem, and I've worked out a nice, smooth turn 6 clear. You can actually extend it even longer if you really want to, using the same basic strategy. So here's the team. We have dropped Bulwark and added Sky to the party, and that has allowed us to get a much higher damage score on 210-81. So let's go ahead and get into the clear. Before we jump in here, let me just touch real quick on the point people, or a question people ask a lot is, what if I don't have a certain unit on your team? There are viable swaps sometimes. Other times, like for this clear specifically, there just aren't any swaps. Like for this one, Carton is basically required for the way I'm doing this. If you don't have Carton, this specific strategy just won't work for you. You know, there's not much I can do about that, but this is currently the high score run, and people have asked me to stop using like Carton and Kresnik on the high score runs because they don't have those units. Unfortunately, the reason my run is currently rank 1 is because I am using the absolute best options, at least at the current time. Someone may figure out a better clear and not using them, but at the current time, for my strategy, I have to use these units. So if you don't have them, you know, I feel bad, but I've got to use them, so apologies for that. Anyway, so the high score run, we want to go to level 81 as usual until you hit the 9.99 billion damage cap. 81 to 10% with these modifiers is the way you want to go. Okay, so we're going to go ahead here and get into the clear. I will put timestamps on the video so you can skip around if you really want to, don't want to see a certain part of the video. But otherwise, we're going to go ahead and get into it. I'm going to cut the video right here so I can get a run in, and I want to show you the best run. It might take a few orbs to get a great run in, but we're going to go for it, and I will see you guys for the clean run in just a moment. Alright guys, let's do a run, and I will explain things as we go. I've done 1 or 2 runs, but something went wrong, and I want to show you a clean run. Okay, so first thing of all is a bunch of auto casting for morale. Morale is always a big deal on these fights. Alright, Sky is just going to barrage to fill morale gauge. Cacteria is going to triple. We're going to 10k needles, Thorn Punch, and Thorny Teamwork. Laura is going to Calamity Border. Alright, Kresnik is going to Shining Siphon to imbue the boss with Light Element. Alright, now Carton is going to Chaos Grenade our own party. So do this, retarget our party with Carton to get morale. And because we're imbued the boss with light, we don't got to worry about mitigations and all on turn 1. So Maeve, who is already auto-covering, is just going to do morale fill. We're going to hit the boss for morale, and we're going to do Run Wild for a long-term stat buff. There we go. Alright, so the boss is imbued with Light Element. We're currently absorbing light, not to mention Maeve is resisting light. So all these attacks are immune. And another side effect of immuning all these attacks means the boss is not gaining morale for dealing damage. Kind of like how we have Barrage to gain morale. It works both ways. The boss's attacks do boost his morale as well. But if we immune the damage, that's actually a lot less morale gain for the boss. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and Chaos Grenade our own party yet again. Notice that we have not done a resistance buff yet on the party. Now we're just going to go ahead and barrage the boss again. Cacteria is just going to Needles, Thorn Punch, and Teamwork. Laura is going to Calamity Border again. Kresnik is going to start doing Stimulant to fill morale gauge. And Maeve, the boss is still imbued, and we're still auto-covering, so we don't really need mitigations for the most part. So we're just going to do Provoke, Morale Fill, and Practice Swing to fill morale even further. So we're not completely immune to damage at this point. If the boss does multi-element attacks, like the Earth or the Thunder attacks, we might take small amounts of damage. But all the pure physical stuff we are immune to with resistance gear in the base form. So here we go. And again, because we're not actually getting hit right here, there's a few hits. The Thunder damage does deal damage. But yeah, because we immuned almost everything, we prevented a lot of morale loss, which is such a big deal for this fight. Okay, so here is turn 3, which is normally when I would push the threshold to skip turn 3, but we're going to be dealing with it. So on turn 3, the boss cures his debuffs again and starts spamming magic damage. It's multi-element magic. It's Earth and Wind attack as well as a Dark Thunder attack. So, let's go ahead and shift Maeve to the shift form. I will point out Maeve is not using her TMR or STMR in the shift form. We don't want her to auto-cast and override cover with her bad cover from auto-cast. So we're not using the Trust passive to prevent that. So we have higher mitigation. Anyway, so because the boss is going to be using Dark Thunder and Earth Wind, Maeve is wearing lots of Earth and Wind resistance. With an average of -75 and +190, that's an average of about 60% resistance. So we're only going to be taking 40% damage, which is still very painful when the boss has no breaks at all. As far as the Dark Thunder attacks, you'll notice we have like basically no Dark Thunder resist. That would normally completely destroy your tank. But Carton's base form LB gives us 1 turn of Dark Absorption. So now we're going to be healed by the Dark Thunder damage and only take damage from the Wind Earth, which we are heavily resisting from all our gear focused only on Wind Earth resist. So it is still a little bit RNG. If the boss decides to just use like 5 Earth Wind attacks in a row, we're going to lose our tank. If he does a few Dark Thunder attacks mixed in between, it's going to actually heal our tank back to full mid-turn. So as long as he just does a little bit of decent RNG where he doesn't just do no Dark Wind attacks at all or Dark Thunder attacks at all, we're fine because Maeve will continuously be healed mid-turn during this. That's how we survive this crazy turn 3. So, let's go ahead and just reload. Laura is going to Calamity, and Kresnik is going to Stimulant. That's just to fill morale gauge. Now, we did use a Limit Burst on Carton. That's going to trigger a Limit Burst penalty because the boss doesn't like LBs. It's going to really penalize our morale because we used an LB. But the penalty is either, it's binary. It's like yes or no. It doesn't matter if you've used 1 LB or 6 LBs. It's the same penalty. So because we're already forcefully eating that Limit Burst penalty this turn, we're going to take the moment to stack Sky as well. Because we're taking the LB penalty anyway, we may as well get a stacking on Sky. So there we go. Now as far as Cacteria, she's going to shift this turn and put up her good Amplify for later. It's a long duration Amplify. Deadly Draught. She's also going to do Needles for morale and then just Thorn Punch because whatever. Okay. Now, as far as Maeve goes, Maeve is going to use Natural Wall. That's going to put up her good magical cover. Normally, if you're using her Trust passive, her auto-cast at the end of the turn would overwrite this good cover. That would be bad. We don't want that. We want the good mitigation from Natural Wall, so we are not using her TMR or STMR in the shift form. We got to fill morale gauge, and we're going to do wild barrier just for a little bit of spirit buff and a big barrier. Okay, so again, we're hoping for the boss to not use too many wind earth attacks in a row. As long as he mixes in some dark damage, we're fine. So here we go. Alright. And here it comes. Please mix in some... There's the dark attack. We're healing it. There's the earth attack. We took damage. He's using a lot. There's an earth attack. Okay, he actually used a decent amount of dark damage that turn. That was fine. Some turns, the boss does a ton of earth attacks. We can survive about 3 earth attacks in a row. As long as he doesn't do 4 earth attacks in a row, we're fine. But he did mix... He actually did mostly dark that turn, so that looked trivial. Sometimes he will do 3 or 4 earth attacks in a row. 4 in a row is game over. 3 in a row is fine. As long as he mixes in at least 1 dark attack in between, it'll heal your tank back to full, and you're good. So that turn looked fine, but sometimes it's more dangerous, and sometimes the tank even dies if the boss just goes crazy on earth attacks. So it is a little bit RNG, but we're still standing. We're fine. Also, notice that we lost a ton of morale. We actually pushed it back towards our favor with the auto casting, but if you at the start of the turn, you probably saw the morale was like really far to the right. That's because we used a limit burst, and the boss does not like limit burst. But you know, we've got units on the team to deal with that. Anyway, turn 4. Let's go back to the base form with Sky. Let's go ahead and Barrage. Let's go back to the base form with Cacteria. We're not going to use her quite yet, though. Okay, Laura is just going to Calamity Border, again, just for morale. Calamity Border fills morale a bunch. Alright, wait for the Barrage to finish. Because sometimes the Barrage messes up the auto-targeting, or the retargeting trick. Alright, so Carton is now going to go back to using Chaos Grenade. Notice we have never used an immunity buff yet, because we do not want to be immune to breaks. We want to be able to break our team for more morale gain. So Carton... Chaos Grenade trick, retarget, target our party. There we go. A lot of morale gain from breaking your own party. Alright, let's go ahead and do the Resilient Will and the Resounding Will this turn. Turn 4, we are going to be taking some damage. We're not using Carton's Dark Absorb, and the boss is going to use Dark damage sometimes. And remember, we skipped Dark Resist completely on Maeve, so that Dark damage is going to hurt pretty bad this turn. The good news is the boss is not going to cure his debuffs, so we're going to use Cacteria to triple. We're going to Cactus Break. We're also going to do a really big Magic Break, and we're going to go ahead and put up the good Spirit Break for later as well. So now the boss is broken, so a lot less damage taken with Magic. The boss is also going to put up a damage over time effect on our party this turn, so you really want to get a good Magic Break in on turn 4, so that damage over time is less potent on your party. Now, as far as Crescent goes, we're going to go ahead and triple. We're going to do Potion to heal the party. That also tops off our tank in case she's hurt. We're going to supplement just for a stat buff for morale. And we're going to Remedy. Remedy is going to finally cure all those breaks and give us break immunity. So we're actually taking less damage now because we're no longer broken. Now, as far as Maeve goes, we're going to triple again. Always got to fill morale, so Hunting Call. But we're also going to now finally set up for bursting across the next 2 turns. So we're going to go ahead and Feral Instinct for the Imbue, Amplify, etc. And we're going to Urine Natural for the Killer buff. Okay, so overall we should be fine. As long as the boss doesn't go crazy on dark damage, we'll be okay here. Oh, I actually saw... Okay, so we got a really good variance roll on cover that turn. So we're going to be totally fine. Yeah, sometimes we're taking up to 1,000 damage per hit right there. There's like the earth damage that we're immuning the earth damage. So that was a great turn. So this is, like I said, this is a clean run. I'm showing you a good run. It's not always going to be that clean. Also, I should mention we should have done Resolute Will last turn for the barrier. I forgot about that. Whatever. Actually, Resolute Will on this turn is even better. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and push the Threshold this turn. So we're going to go ahead and do the big Resounding Will here. Cacteria is going to... Keep in mind, on the Threshold, you don't want to use any LBs whatsoever. If you do an LB in the Threshold, it's going to trigger an auto death. So don't use LB at all during the threshold, unless of course you have to, like Sephiroth or something, you do what you got to do. But for this party, no LBs on the threshold. So Cacteria is going to triple. We're going to go ahead and Hollow Desert. That's a bigger Earth Imperil for the boss. We're going to Thorny Teamwork to put up that 30% Fist Imperil. And then we're just going to go ahead and do 10,000 Needles just to break the boss for morale gain. She's already high broken. Alright, Carton is going to shift, and we're going to Frenzy to push the threshold. And we're going to chain that with Lara Croft, who's going to shift and do Volatile Ammunition. And that's going to put up the 90% defense break. So just for pushing the threshold, Carton and Lara, way more than we need. We're going to go ahead and just push the threshold with those two and get it out of the way. We're going to do this before doing everyone else, because now we need to fill Laura's LB gauge again for next turn. So to help with that, Maeve is going to go to the base form. Keep in mind, the base form is using her TMR or STMR for the Trust passive. So she's going to auto-cast physical cover when we shift, which is a good thing, because we're not going to waste an action actually casting it. So we're going to go ahead and use triple. We're going to, again, fill morale gauge. We're also going to do effective strategy. That's a 50% general mitigation buff. We need that because we are damage over time. And then we're going to go ahead and put up the Hammer Imperil. Yeah, if you notice, the party is all damage over time from the turn 3 attack. So we're going to take some big damage, but we've got lots of mitigation up from all the buffs on the party right now, not to mention good magic breaks. Sky is going to just put up the Spear Imperil for later, and then hit the boss twice for morale gain. And then Kresnik is going to triple. We're just going to do Potion, Supplement, and a Potion again. That's going to fill morale as well. If you look right here, the morale is almost filled. We're about 5% short. Kresnik's going to finish it off. So there it is. Max morale for the real burst turn next. So here's the threshold. The threshold is very low damage. We're wearing lots of resist gear. There was the damage over time. As you saw, it did about 15,000 damage. We still had the 15,000 point barrier from Maeve on most units the previous turn. So that that damage over time was reduced from all the mitigation buffs we had up. Also, it was mostly absorbed by the 15,000 point barrier that Maeve put on the party. Notice how Cacteria would have actually died from the damage over time. So would have Sky. But the barrier absorbed that like 15,000 damage over time. So that huge barrier, very helpful. So now it's turn 6. Now we're going to finish off the fight and do our high damage run and the chain count score. So notice morale, 200%. That is what we want. You also might notice that Lara Croft's LB is not quite ready to go. So Kresnik, normal attack 4 times. That handles the LB gauge. Lara Croft, good to go. Alright, so we're going to shift Sky. And we're going to shift Cacteria. Alright, we're also going to do the morale buff. So Resilient Will for the 400% defense. And then the Resounding Will for the 400% attack and magic. Okay, so Sky is going to use her LB to cap here. We're killing the boss, but LBs are fine. We only have 1 stack from turn 3, but most of Sky's LB is based on the morale gauge, not really her stacking in Clash of Wills. Cacteria is going to triple. Now, don't forget, she has her Amplify already up from earlier in the fight. Maeve is going to triple Practice Swing. Carton is going to Full Moon Frenzy, or Feral Frenzy, and Lara Croft is going to Queen of the Jungle. That's going to give her a bigger killer buff for the actual burst turn. The 90% defense break is already up from the previous round. Okay, so the boss has no buffs of his own, 90 defense break, 89 spirit break, 135 earth imperil, 30% fist imperil, 25 hammer imperil, and a 30% spear imperil. We're fully buffed on the party. We're amplified. We're imbued. We've got killer buffs. We are fully ready to go. For the chaining, we're going to use Maeve to chain with Cacteria and start the chain. That's going to build the chain modifier because they're our lowest damage dealers. They're going to build the chain. Then Sky is going to come in and start capping the chain, and then Lara and Carton are going to chain at the end to bridge the chain after the chain is already at the full 600% damage bonus, and that's going to full 6x cap our 3 primary DPS. It's also going to give us that 109 chain count score. Only need 100, we're going to do 109. So I'm going to pause the video here. I want to show you what a really high variance roll looks like. So we're going to come back when I've run this fight a few times and showed you a good variance roll. So I will see you in a moment. Okay guys, we're back on turn 6. I'm going to go for another attempt at high variance. Variance is the biggest headache, and if this is not a high variance run, I will just edit in my best variance run from last night where I was recording but not really narrating. Anyway, let's do the chaining as I explained during the earlier part of the video. So there it is. We're looking for good variance. Sky rolled bad. That freaking sucks. I can see right there. Ah, Sky. 8.2. That was garbage. That was garbage. Okay, I'm going to edit real quick and show you what a high variance run looks like from last night. The exact same team and strategy. Here's this. Here's the. Oh my God, Laura rolled terrible as well. But Carton rolled high, of course. And actually, this is a terrible variance run. I'm gonna edit real quick and show you a high variance run from last night. So give me 1 second. Alright guys, so here is a clip from last night where I got my best variance run using the same strategy. I'm just going to edit this in. I wasn't narrating, I was just running practice runs last night, and one of these were the highest variance run. So just real quick, I'll show you what happens when all the stars align and variance runs good. So this is the recording, you know. This was my 8.7 variance run. Everyone rolled high this run, feels good. Feels real bad when it doesn't happen, but boom. There's my current high score from last night. Unfortunately, I was not able to surpass that when rerunning the fight today for the video. But there was the high score run. Let's go ahead and show what the damage breakdown was. And let's go ahead and pause the video here. Okay, so yeah, here was the damage breakdown on a good roll. Keep in mind these numbers are across 2 burst turns, and Laura and Carton bursted on turn 5 to push the threshold, and then again on turn 6. Cacteria and Sky only bursted on the actual kill turn. So Cacteria did 1.1 billion on the real burst turn. Sky did 2.3 basically billion on the real burst turn, and then Carton did something like 2 billion across 2 turns. And Laura did something like, it's actually slightly higher to the last turn, because the last turn is at max morale. Turn 5 was not at max morale, so it's weighted more towards the second burst. So Carton did more like something like, I don't know, 2.5 billion, and then Laura did something like 3.5 billion on the kill turn. That was the high run. Now let me go ahead and edit back in, or resume the real video where I show you the gear and all. Alright guys, I should have edited in and shown you a high variance run. So let's go ahead and go over the gear now and show what this kind of team can do when variance cooperates. So, you know, the modifiers, etc. So here is the team we used. Here's the team, here's the espers, etc. So let's go over the units one by one. Cacteria, in the base form, is using full evasion so that we don't kill our party with Chaos Grenade. She's also using status immunity because we're not buffing that for the early turns. Earth Weapon so that we can deal morale early in the fight. Some auto casting. Philosopher's Stone. That's mostly it. Shift form is purely built for damage with fist weapons because we're using a good fist in peril. There's her build. She does approximately 1.2 on a nice roll. So, 275 Beast and 200 Dragon. Base form Carton is full evasion, again, so that we don't kill our party with the Chaos Grenade. Earth Weapon, so that we can help with morale earlier in the fight. Conductor's Baton for autocast. Lily's autocast. Status immunity, important. Riku's Pouch for Chaos Grenade. And some auto buffing like Wisdom of Hess. Also, we've got auto buffing on Lordly Robe for the mitigation, so we don't die to the damage over time. So everyone has auto shell from a source and in a off form. So there's his barrage as well. Actually, Carton never uses barrage in my new strategy, so that's actually not important. Shift form is dual wielded damage. Dual wielded fist. Here's the build. the Laura's card. 5,800 attack power, 295 beast, and 220 dragon. He does something around 2.5 billion on the burst turn. I know the damage report shows him around 4 billion. That's actually across 2 different turns. The burst turn, he's somewhere around 2.5 to 3 billion, depending on variants. Laura Croft, base form, full evasion, Magister's Chest, Miracle Shoes for auto buffing, Conductor's Baton, Calamity Border, so we can spam that lots of turns for morale gain. Shift form is double-handed fist build because of Cacteria's in peril. Chain cap up with the Magister's Chest, etc. She is the primary DPS. She does something like 3.5 billion on a really good roll. Maxed Beast, Maxed Dragon. I'm sorry, Maxed Beast, 200 Dragon. Yeah, she's a little harder to build for killers when you're going with a fist build, but it works. And there we go. Sky in the base form is... also notice we're using guts items if possible, like Chocobo Feather. Laura has guts naturally. Carton is actually not using guts. Cacteria is using Chocobo accessory. That's because the damage over time actually used to kill my units, but with the new strategy, we've got the 15,000 point barrier, and we've got all the mitigations with auto buffing like Miracle Shoes and stuff. So actually the damage over time isn't even killing anyone anymore. But I gave guts because it used to be, but we don't really need that anymore. Anyway, Sky, base form. Make sure she's using her TMR, the Magister's Helm, full evasion, dual wield with an earth weapon so that we can just help with morale. Barrage, status immunity, etc. Shift form is dealt for damage. Using a spear because her own spear in peril, which is why her damage is a little bit bad. She does about 2.2 billion on a good variance roll, potentially a little bit higher. Status immunity in the shift form. The shift form doesn't need it, the base form does. Here's her build, LB damage versus Beast and Dragons. We've got maxed LB damage, 280 Beast, and maxed Dragon. I should probably give the Tifa card to Carton, now that I'm thinking about it, but I think actually Sky would build a lot worse without Tifa's card, so I don't really know. I only have one of them. Anyway, Kresnik in the shift form is really high MP because the mana drain on turn 1. We want that going to Kresnik, so high MP. Mana reduction gear, Philosopher's Stone, so we can do Arcane Stimulant on turn 2 after being drained. Full evasion, status immunity, because we need... actually, he's not status immune. Oh, he's paralyzed. You only really need paralyzed immunity, not full status immunity. Yeah, but paralyzed immunity is important. You got to have that. So here is his build. And then base form, basically same thing. Philosopher's Stones, full evasion, etc. Make sure he's full evasion in the base form as well because the Chaos Grenade. And then Maeve, the new tank. So in the base form, we are using the TMR or STMR because we need the base form physical cover to auto cast because we're not wasting time casting her actual cover. We use Light Imbue to negate all the damage. So here's her stats. Keep in mind, with the modifier for resist turned on, these are all 100 points lower than shown right now. This is without the modifier turned on. So everything across the board would be 100 points less. So she is status immune, really high. You need at least 200 to light resist. We immune all the early stuff. Earth and thunder resist as well in the base form. We don't need any dark or wind resist whatsoever in the base form. So there's her build. Defense, not really super important, honestly. Just go for resistance. Mechanical Heart also helps a little bit. Here's her card. We're using this because of the resist all modifier. But yeah, so base form, all in for light, earth, and thunder resist. Shift form is all in for earth, wind, and some thunder resist. So here is the shift form build. Spirit, not so important. You want as high as you possibly can to earth and wind. Those are the two big ones. Thunder as a secondary, but earth and wind are the absolute primary resistances in the shift form. Dark resist you can completely ignore. As you saw during the fight, the dark resist was negative 175%. That's from a starting point of 135 plus Calamity Border. So yeah, as you can see, the imperils are enormous in this fight. Anyway, here is the build we use. So some key items that were helpful were like Rainbow Robe, a Resist All Helm, Spring Basket is great because it gives 50 Earth and 50 Thunder. Knight's Meadow is obvious. Winry's Earring is really nice because it gives 50 Earth and 50 Thunder. This is just a resist all by 30. As you can see, we're wearing 2 of them. This is nice because, again, it gives 60 to Wind and 60 to Earth. And this one gives 60 to Wind and 60 to Thunder. Also status immunity. So resist across the board on Maeve. So her, with the barrier, a lot of Wind and Earth resist, as well as her natural bulk. She's able to survive the Wind-Earth attack, even with the boss not broken on turn 3, and then the Dark Thunder attacks are absorbed. The reason I wanted the high Thunder resist as well, because on turn 4, the second turn of the magic turn, I wanted her to resist most of the attacks. That way we don't lose as much morale. So high Thunder resist helps you with not losing as much morale on turn 4. So there was my clear new high score run, currently rank 1 yet again. After I post this, we'll see what happens, but hope it's been helpful. See you guys in a bit.